Good morning, everyone. Today, we shall begin our discussion on one of the most important subjects in business administration, namely strategic management and strategy. The essence of strategy is the creation of a long-term direction that enables an organization to achieve goals and gain competitive advantage. It involves making deliberate choices about where to compete and how to allocate resources effectively. A successful strategy focuses on achieving sustainable performance through purposeful actions and informed decision making. Let's see the evolution of the concept of strategy from military origins to modern management. In a world changing this fast, how do you compete not just for today's markets, but for the future itself? That question is the spine of everything we will explore together. Our journey will begin with understanding strategy, strategic intent to execution, etc. Our journey will begin with understanding strategy. Strategic intent to execution is the journey through which an organization transforms long-term aspirations into coordinated actions and measurable outcomes. It begins with defining a compelling vision and strategic intent that creates direction and stretches organizational capabilities. It uncovers the environment and the competition. The next stage involves translating intent into strategies, allocating resources, and aligning people and processes within the organization. Successful execution depends on leadership commitment, adaptability, continuous learning, and performance monitoring. Ultimately, the strategic journey determines whether ideas become sustained competitive advantage and long-term value creation or not. So, the strategic journey will also explore other corporate realities. So, let's start the journey of strategic safari. The journey we will complete in 12 weeks comprised of 60 sessions. This is your strategic roadmap. In this course, we will explore strategy, examine how the organizations articulate strategic intent through vision, mission, business definition, goals, objectives, and critical success factors. These concepts have translated ambitious aspirations into coordinated actions. Successful organizations rarely rely on short-term reactions only. They are guided by a broader sense of direction and a broader sense of purpose that creates their destiny. To make effective strategic decisions, managers must learn to read their environment correctly and carefully. This is your strategic roadmap that we will be discussing along this journey. In this course, we will explore strategy, examining how the organizations articulate strategic intent through vision, mission, business definition, goals, objectives, and critical success factors. These concepts help translate ambitious aspiration into coordinated efforts. Successful organizations rarely rely on short-term reactions alone. They are guided by a broader sense of direction, a broader sense of purpose, which creates their destiny. To make effective decisions, managers have to understand the environment, the competition, which is very tough and emerging or becoming very difficult for the companies. Understanding an environment is necessary. It is important. But strategy ultimately requires making choices Even the most brilliant strategy has little value if it cannot be implemented effectively. Understanding an environment is necessary, but strategy ultimately requires making choices and formulating strategies. But here I would say that even the most brilliant strategy has little value if it cannot be implemented, if it cannot be executed effectively. That's why strategic management is not only about analysis and planning, it is also about execution, formulation, it is also about execution and control. Ultimately, strategy is not merely about deciding what to do. It is also about ensuring that those decisions become reality. So, we will conclude the course by looking at some of the most important strategic challenges facing organizations today. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries at an alarming rate with an extraordinary pace. At the same time, organizations face what the scholars call the sustainability paradox. So, it is to see how can organizations balance innovation with ethical responsibility. Over the years, I have been fascinated by one enduring puzzle. Why do some companies continuously adapt, innovate, and remain relevant, while others gradually lose their advantage and fade from the prominence? So, this course is an invitation to explore that puzzle together. More importantly, it is an opportunity to develop a strategic way of thinking, one that helps us understand organizations not simply as businesses but as evolving dynamic systems operating in complex, constantly changing environments. Here I have put certain covers of books, that is food for the thought, leading to strategic thought, and through these we learn to unfold future. Say for example, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, Strategy Safari, Competing for Future, Competitive Advantage by Michael Porter, Corporate Strategy by Ansoff, Future Shock, Competitive Strategies, Search for Excellence, Steve Jobs' Contribution, Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, looking at the sustainability aspect, The World is Flat, looking at the globalization, and the biography of Elon Musk, the person who is creating future and who is a great source to define the challenges coming ahead in the future. So, these are a few books. I would suggest that all of you should read it at least once, and if possible read again and again, because all these books provide us an insight into the strategy, the strategic management, the way competition is fought, the way certain other corporate realities impact the strategy formulation and implementation, so on and so forth. So, now we come to the introduction to strategic management. Strategic management is considered as a comprehensive, integrative and general management discipline because it connects all the functional areas of the organization such as marketing, finance, HR, IT, R&D, etc. When managers make strategic decisions, they do not think only about one department. Rather, they think about the organization as a whole. This integrated perspective is what differentiates strategic management from routine operational managements or other subject areas, where the managers are concerned with their own specific functional area or functional activities. Peter Drucker raised three fundamental questions way back. What is our business? which helps managers to understand present identity of the organization. The second question is, what will our business be? Which encourages leaders to think about futuristically, future trends, opportunities and challenges. And the third question is, that is very important, what should our business be in 10 years, 20 years down the line? So, this pushes the managers, strategists to envision an ideal future position. That future position that the companies can create in times to come. Consider for example, how traditional automobile companies are asking whether they should remain automotive manufacturers or transform into mobility solution providers. So, broad objectives are there: remain in that industry or trying to create a new industry. Strategic management is essentially about understanding the past and present, anticipating the future and designing a path that connects present to future. Briefly, we will look into the evolution of strategic management and the strategy. Because without understanding the evolution of strategic management, it would be difficult to understand the concept of strategy. That is the focal point in strategic management. The first phase emerged during 1950s. It was the budgeting and financial planning phase that focused on short-term budgeting and financial controls with less attention to the external factors. The second phase, which started from 1960, focused on long range planning for the organizations. Say for example, 5 years planning for the organization. So, it was based on the forecasting, on the basis of the past data, and the trends were extrapolated. The third phase, that was more towards the strategy, more towards the strategic planning, was the strategic planning phase starting somewhere in 1970s. During this phase, organizations began realizing both internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. So, strategic planning basically represented major advancements in managerial thinking, because organizations nowadays move beyond just only the forecasting and the long range planning or budgeting. So, during this period, that is strategic planning period, managers recognized that long term success could not be achieved merely by projecting past trends into future. This approach, that is strategic planning approach, encouraged managers to think proactively rather than reactively by anticipating environmental changes and preparing according to those challenges or preparing the suitable responses. Strategic planning is a formalized process through which organizations establish objectives, they analyze environmental actions, they generate strategic capabilities, establish the most appropriate course of action and then execute those strategies. Strategic planning is a formalized process through which organizations strategic vision, mission and purpose for the organization, analyze environments and then select the suitable responses, and on the basis of that formulate strategies. The process typically involves top management and specialized planning departments that collect the past data, that collect the information, and then out of that information try to anticipate the kind of future it will be, and accordingly the strategies are formulated. SWOT analysis, I would say, is one of the important tools which is being used in strategic planning. The fourth phase was the strategic management phase that started somewhere in 1980s. the managers realized that making the strategies only is not sufficient. The implementation, the execution of strategy is also very important. So, the focus was shifted in this phase from making strategies only rather than a comprehensive framework of strategic intent, formulation of the strategies, implementation of the strategies, and then evaluation and control of those strategies, or throughout monitoring of the whole process was done under strategic management. As businesses grew, as business environment became increasingly competitive and dynamic, strategic management continued to evolve. The fifth phase during the 1990s focused on competitive strategy. Organizations concentrated on industry structure, positioning and differentiation to achieve sustainable competitive advantage. And here the Porter's contribution, Michael Porter's contribution is notable. His five forces model, his value chain analysis model, his understanding of competitive strategy in the form of cost leadership, differentiation, focus strategy plays a great role in defining the strategic management as a whole. The next phase acknowledged the understanding or introduced the concept of resource based view, which shifted its attention from external environment or external linkages to internal organizational capabilities, organizational resources. Managers recognize that unique resources are required to execute and implement the strategy. Technological expertise, capabilities, competencies, organizational culture, all these things are related to convert strategy into a successful and meaningful competitive advantage. Apple represents an excellent example of the entire evolution. Apple represents an excellent example because its design capability, innovation culture, innovation centers within the organization, knowledge creation, brand loyalty, all these things provide competitive advantage to the company. The seventh phase, which started somewhere in the start of the 21st century, is the phase of knowledge and learning era. It emphasized knowledge and organizational learning. Organizations discovered that knowledge creation, innovation and continuous learning were becoming critical components of the competitiveness. Say for example, Google developed the culture that encourages creativity, experimentation, sources of competitiveness, etc. So, learning, the lifelong learning for the organizations became necessary. The next phase that we are moving into or we are going through, that is the eighth phase, is known as digital and agile strategy phase, and the future is unfolding in the form of AI phase also. So, the eighth phase represents the digital and agile strategy era. Today, organizations operate in environments characterized by technological disruptions, artificial intelligence, big data and rapid market changes. So, the question becomes, can organizations survive if they continue using strategies developed 10 years ago? I would say the answer is no, because modern strategic management requires agility, adaptability and continuous learning. One of the most significant developments in modern strategic management is the concept of the learning organizations. Organizations must continuously learn, adapt and innovate. learn, adapt, and innovate if they are to survive in rapidly changing environments. A learning organization is one that systematically acquires, creates, shares, and applies knowledge throughout the organization to attain strategic objectives. The concept recognizes that knowledge has become one of the most valuable strategic resources in the modern economy. Organizations that learn faster than competitors are often able to identify the problems and challenges and as well as opportunities earlier than their competitors. They are able to respond more effectively and fast. They are able to adapt more quickly to the environmental demands and challenges. So learning organizations therefore are a source of competitive advantage. This perspective shifted managerial attention from simply from controlling or evaluating employees to empower them. And thus from here we got the concept of the golden collar or the knowledge workers. Finally, I would say that strategic management is becoming more people centered and knowledge driven than even before. And Google and many other companies provide an excellent example of this, where they talk about the learning at different stages throughout the organization across different functional areas, and they try to empower their employees. The company Google encourages innovation, collaboration, and experimentation through its organizational culture. Strategic management continues to evolve in response to increasing environmental complexity, globalization, technological advancements, and changing stakeholder perspectives or expectations. The traditional focus on planning and control is gradually giving way to flexibility, innovation, continuous adaptation, agility, etc. Organizations are increasingly operating in environments characterized by uncertainty, rapid technological changes, global competition, and shifting customer preferences. Managers and strategists are expected to anticipate change, respond quickly to emerging opportunities, and continuously revise strategic assumptions, strategic beliefs, and values. So, the emphasis is moving from merely achieving efficiency toward creating organizational agility and resilience. The future of the strategic management will be shaped by knowledge innovation, digital technology, AI, and stakeholder expectations, stakeholder engagement. So, this shift explains why organizations invest heavily in learning systems, talent development and research, technological innovation, advancement of facilities within the organization, etc. Another important trend is the emergence of global thinking. According to Friedman, in The World is Flat, technology and connectivity have created a level playing field for the companies. Nowadays, opportunities can move across borders faster and with less friction than ever before. So, according to Friedman, the world is providing opportunities to everyone, to every company across the globe, and simultaneously it is providing challenges also to all and everyone, to everyone in the marketplace. It is up to you only, it is up to the company only that how do they tackle the challenges, whether they become agile and responsive, whether they become resilient to problems, challenges, whether they are able to develop their capabilities or not, so on and so forth, or in a nutshell, whether the companies are able to become the learning organizations or not. Organizations, I'll say, must now consider international markets, global supply chain, geopolitical risk, and cross-cultural management issues while formulating strategies. The focus of strategic management will be shaped by integration of artificial intelligence and sustainability as twin drivers of competitive advantage. AI and sustainability sometimes are considered as two opposite forces having different kinds of expectations. So, the organizations, I would say, organizations would be faced by a sustainability paradox. Sustainability paradox where they have to integrate the demands of AI and the stakeholders' demand towards sustainability. Artificial intelligence enables organizations to move from reactive planning to predictive and adaptive decision making through real time data and intelligent analytics and a complete analytical technological AI driven ecosystem. On the other hand, sustainability is transforming strategy from a profit centered approach to value centered approach that balances technologies and environmental concerns. So, future strategic leaders will need to combine technological intelligence with ethical responsibility to create resilient and purpose driven organizations. Competitive advantage will become or will increasingly depend on how effectively firms align, how effectively companies align AI capabilities with sustainable innovation and long term stakeholder value. Another important aspect that we can add in the on this particular subject, that is evolving or evolution of strategic management. When companies are moving towards globalization, AI, learning organizations, responding to the external challenges, simultaneously companies have certain ethical, moral and social responsibilities also. Modern strategic management extends beyond profitability and competitive advantage. Organizations increasingly face expectations from stakeholders regarding ethical behavior, social responsibility, corporate sustainability, and corporate citizenship. As a result, strategic decisions must be evaluated not only in terms of economic outcomes but also in terms of their social and ethical implications. An ethically responsible organization seeks to make decisions that are fair, transparent, and consistent with societal values. A strategy that generates while harming employees, consumers, or communities may eventually damage the organization's reputation and long term viability. Corporate social responsibility represents an organization's commitment to contribute positively to society while pursuing business objectives. Modern stakeholders evaluate organizations based on their social and environmental performances. Consumers often prefer products and services from companies that demonstrate ethical and responsible behavior. Investors, on the other hand, are increasingly considering environmental, social, and governance factors while making investment decisions. Employees, likewise, prefer to work for those companies whose values align with their own beliefs and aspirations. So, we can take the example of Tata that illustrates how ethical values and social responsibility can become integral components of community development along with business success. So, the fundamental message, the most important message of this paradigmatic shift is that strategic management is moving towards a stakeholder oriented perspective. And in last 100 years, we have seen that strategic management has seen many different paradigms. Now we are moving in that paradigm which is heavily dependent on aspirations and expectations of the society and the stakeholders from the companies. Companies have to behave ethically, morally, socially so that their actions, their products and services are best suited for the organization to meet the expectations of the external environment. Simultaneously, the companies have to solve the sustainability paradox, that is how to integrate technology, digital performance, AI into company activities in a way that organizations become agile organizations, resilient organizations, but simultaneously focus on focus on shareholders and stakeholders also, or focus on the future needs of the societies. So, with this we conclude today's discussion. We can say that there are a few prominent aspects which we discussed in this. Strategic management is a structured approach to long-term goals. It has moved from financial planning to comprehensive discipline. It has incorporated the ideas of ethics and social responsibility, and these are non-negotiable. Now, public customers are not ready to listen to those companies which are not thinking in these terms. And I would say the future of the strategic management and future of the business depends on, or it belongs to, adaptive organizations, and for which AI is going to play a role. That's all for today's session. A few references you will find to get more insights into this subject or into this particular component, that is evolution of strategic management. Thank you.